Good morning everyone. I'm here today back at the hospice in the greenhouse on a very foggy, damp and quite cold morning to kind of show you and give you some hints and tips on doing your autumn and winter hanging baskets. Now obviously our summer ones are still going at the moment, but they are starting to look bedraggled and getting quite old and had enough almost. So we now need to start replacing them with our autumn and winter ones. It's good to start them now so that while we still have this relatively sort of warm weather, they can really bush up, look lovely, ready for going outside and facing the winter when it comes. So first of all, kind of a bit like when we did our spring and summer ones, you'll need your basket. Try and get a pot or something big enough to hold the basket. That's just so that it's not rocking about on your table while you're trying to do it, spilling it everywhere or it almost falling over. It'll keep it still in a good position so that you can fill it and it's at a good height for you to work. So again, we're going to fill it with compost. It's got a little bit of vermiculite in it, not too much, because obviously during the autumn and winter we're not going to get those really hot weathers. It's going to be a lot more damper, colder, and we don't actually want too much moisture in the soil. Otherwise the plants are just going to freeze and get very, very cold. Most of them are very hardy and they will be fine, but you just best to try and not have too much moisture in the soil. So I'm just going to fill it up about halfway. I haven't wet this soil beforehand. It's nice and dry, easy to work with, and I'll water it at the end. So just fill it halfway, no more than that. What I tend to do for my autumn and winter baskets is I do also put spring bulbs in, so that once we come sort of out of the winter and it starts warming up, ready for spring, and our pansies, violas, cyclamen, all those plants you use during autumn and winter are starting to again look really bedraggled. They've kind of had enough. Our bulbs then come through and just fill that gap from when these baskets finish to when we've got our spring, summer baskets out. So the bulbs I'm going to put in these baskets are some muscari, the grape hyacinth, which actually when they're planted en masse in a basket, a pot, they look lovely. They're beautiful. So I am going to put, there's 100 in this bag. I'm not going to put 100 in one basket. I'll probably put about 15. And then I'm also going to put some iris, some dwarf iris called Harmony. And again, these are just beautiful with that purple little yellow beard. They're tiny, they don't get very, very tall or leggy. And again, they just look beautiful. And they'll come after the muscari. So the muscari will flower, give us that beautiful blue grape hyacinth. That'll start to die back and then the iris will come through. And again, that just fills that little gap from when these baskets are finished to when I've got then my spring and summer ones done, as I did earlier in the year. So first things first is to put your bulbs in. So you can use some other bulbs, you know, some years I have put in dwarf narcissi, so taitates and minnows. So you get that wonderful tiny little daffodil popping through, and that is just the harbinger of spring to me. You can also put in your snowdrops. I have also put snowdrops in them before, and again, if you've got them planted en masse in this basket, they look lovely, all these lovely white bells hanging from it. And there are lots of other miniature bulbs you can use in your baskets. It's a case of going to the garden centre, having a look at what you like, make sure they are miniature ones. You don't want ones that are going to get 30, 40 centimetres tall because they will just be far too big for this basket. You only want ones that are going to get sort of between 8 and 12 centimetres, not very big at all. So, as I say, I'm only going to put about probably 15 bulbs of the muscari in. And I'll kind of put them more around the edge so that once they grow up, they'll dangle over the edge of the basket for us and give us those lovely little blue flowers. So we'll just put those in. Now it is okay to plant your bulbs in compost. You can get bulb fibre this time of the year for them, which all bulb fibre is a much finer kind of compost, really fine, and it doesn't have too much nutrients in it. But we're quite all right planting them in it with these other plants, because it's the plants that are going to take all the nutrients from this soil, not the bulbs. Right, so that's those. I'm then just going to put a bit more compost just on top of them. Just a little bit, not too much, just so they're covered. And then I'm going to put my iris in. And again, I'm not going to put too many, probably only about 8 of these. Sort of, and I'll put these more into the centre of it. So you've got your muscari out on the outside, and then your irises in the centre. And they'll look lovely come the spring. Right, so that's those in. Again, tiny little bit of soil over the top of them. Right, so you've got your bulbs in, and now we're going to start putting our plants in. You can get massive amounts of plants to be putting in your baskets this time of the year. Obviously there's not as many flowering plants as there would be during spring and summer, and that's just because it's winter. But it's just looking for them. There are still some beautiful ones, your winter pansies, your winter violas, and they can give you all sorts of colours and flowers throughout the autumn and winter. Your cyclamen, again, they can be quite beautiful. You can get frilly ones and double ones. It's just going and having a good look around and finding plants you like. You can fill them with primroses or primulas so that you get those tall flowers coming out. It's kind of depending on what you like. Again, as I did in the spring or summer, I always like to have a central plant. So a plant in the middle that kind of gives you that bit of wow factor, and then all the colour out on the outside. And this time of the year, definitely, I'd always go for a grass, because again, they're evergreen. This will constantly be there, this lovely foliage blowing in the wind, and then have all these flowers planted round them. Now, this is a perennial grass known as, I think it's bunny's tail. And what will happen when later in the year, come sort of springtime, it will send up what are its seed heads. And its seed heads supposedly look like a little bunny's tail. This won't get much bigger than this. It might bulk out a little bit, but it isn't going to get a lot bigger or taller. And if you imagine this in the basket, along with all your flowers and then your bulbs, it just gives a lovely look to it. So I've put him in the middle. He's in there nicely. I've teased his roots out because he's quite root bound, but just tease them from the side, just so that makes it send off its shoots again. And he's lovely and green. The colour is just beautiful. Right, and I am going to just fill up with a bit more soil around him. Pretty much almost to the top. So just keep filling it up, just pushing it down gently with your fingers, not compacting it completely, but just pushing it down a little bit, just so that there's not too many air holes or air pockets in it. Because I've not watered this compost yet, it'll have a lot of air to it, hence why it's really dusty and can make quite a mess, but it's all the fun of gardening. So there we are. Right, what I'm going to do is around the grass, as you've probably noticed here, is fill it with some violas and pansies. Again, these can come in a mass array of colour, and you can stick to one colour. You know, you can just get red, you can get just yellow, just purples, blues, or you can mix them. Again, I like to just mix them up, so you just have a good mix of colour, but that's just me. So I'm going to put some of these bigger ones in first. And what I'd always suggest when it comes to like your violas and your pansies is really fill the basket as much as you can. just so that every part of that basket is covered. So as it bushes up, like this plant has, it'll fill quite a space. They'll all grow up and intermingle, and then you'll just get these lovely flowers coming out. You can also put in, some years we have used ivy in our baskets, so that you kind of get them nice greenery leaves just hanging down. Ivy's good for that, and it'll keep evergreen for you throughout the autumn and winter, and sometimes they can have some wonderful colours during autumn and winter. But I'm not going to use any of that in these baskets this year. And just keep filling around the edge. You might have to keep adding a little bit more compost, because as you compact it, it kind of leaves a hole. As you probably noticed, I've reused my compost bags again, as I do all the time whenever I do my baskets. I just recycle my compost bags and use those. Once you've got it all in, and you've got as many as you want in, as I say, sometimes it's quite nice to fill them up as much as possible so you get all that beautiful colour. Oh, there goes Mr. Butterfly. It's obviously realised I was here. Get them in. Right, once that's done, you then need to, obviously, as I earlier in the year said, cut your bag to the size you want. So just pulling the bag upwards, just cut along the rim of the basket, like so. And that's your winter basket. I'll water this now, and as it's quite damp and a bit cool, I will keep it in here for a day or two. Then I'll put it outside, keep an eye on it, get it nice and big, and get these pansies and violas bushing up a lot more, and then we'll hang them out. Sometimes what is good is once you have planted them, although this looks absolutely lovely with these flowers, for them to then set their roots into this basket is actually, I would recommend cutting the flowers off. Now you will get more flowers, they will set off more flowers, but at least what that does is it encourages it to go down and put its roots down. I know they're beautiful, and it seems just wrong to do so. They are edible. You can then have them on a salad or something. And they actually do look very nice on top of a salad when you have a few little flower heads. It's actually amazing what flowers are edible when you start looking at it and researching it. So yeah, seems wrong to do this because they look absolutely beautiful, all these purples and whites and blues and yellows, but it will help the plant. Believe me. Then during the season, so during autumn and winter, when they are flowering, it is also quite important to deadhead them. So once the flower's spent, and usually you can tell when the flower's finished and done, because it kind of gets a bit wrinkly, the petals fold in on themselves, and eventually the petals will fall off. Then you'll have a seed head, and it will start putting all the goodness into making those seeds, which is not what we want. We've not got them in here to grow seeds. We want to grow more and more flowers and have this looking lovely throughout the autumn and winter. So every so often, just go check them and deadhead them. Take the deadheads off, and it will keep it flowering for you for much, much longer. The grass you shouldn't need to do anything with. It'll be fine. Just leave it and let it do its thing. Once obviously this basket is finished, come spring next year, so your bulbs have done, they're spent and finished, you can then take the grass out, because as I say, that is a perennial and that will continue growing for you throughout the year. So you can then go either plant that somewhere else or use it in your spring and summer baskets. So that's one basket. Obviously here at the hospice I've got about 5 or 6 to do, so I will do them all. But that just gives you some ideas on getting yours done. So thank you.